fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The migraine was never just a headache, it was a curse forged in the veil, a relentless hammer of molten fire against my skull. I curled on the cracked sofa of my cramped apartment, the stale scent of cold coffee mingling with the metallic tang of sweat. My fingers trembled as I fished the amber bottle from the nightstand, my prescribed relief, a tiny promise of oblivion. I swallowed 2 pills, the bitter ash coating my tongue, and felt the world tilt. Within minutes the pain dissolved, replaced by a warm, languid haze that seeped into every fiber of my body. My vision softened, colors bleeding into each other like watercolor on parchment. It was then that I felt it, a low, rhythmic pulse deep in my abdomen, a seed awakening. Kaylin appeared in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the flickering streetlight outside. She was taller than me, her dark hair spilling over shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of centuries. Her eyes, a stormy violet, locked onto mine, and in that instant I knew she had felt the same shift. "Alara," she whispered, voice low and urgent, "the veil is thinning. The seed you carry is not a curse, it is a bridge." Heat blossomed in my womb, a fierce, intoxicating fire that made my skin tingle. I could feel Kaylin's hands slide over my own, her fingers warm, her breath hot against my ear. The contact sent a shiver of longing through me, a yearning that was both terrifying and exquisite. We had been friends since the academy, studying ancient sigils and forbidden rites together, but the bond forged in that moment was different. It was primal, a magnetic pull that made my heart race and my pulse sync with hers. The seed pulsed louder, hungry, whispering promises of power and peril beyond the veil. Shadows gathered outside the window, claw-like tendrils of darkness reaching for the light we held. Kaylin's grip tightened. "If the bond breaks, we die together," she said, eyes fierce, lips barely moving. I pressed my forehead to hers, feeling the heat of her skin mingle with the fire inside me. The world narrowed to the taste of her breath, the electric charge of our intertwined magic, and the terrifying beauty of what we were becoming. In that suspended breath, I understood the cost. To nurture the seed would mean surrendering a part of myself to the veil, to the darkness that coveted us. Yet the thought of losing Kaylin, of feeling her absence like a cold void, was a fate I could not bear. "Hold on, Alara," she murmured again, her voice a promise and a plea. "We will face whatever comes together." The seed surged, a wave of heat that threatened to burst, and I realized the true question was not what the veil would demand, but what we were willing to give to each other to survive its hunger. The night stretched thin, the city's neon veins pulsing like a heartbeat beneath the rain-slick streets. I could still taste the copper of my own blood on my tongue, a reminder that the migraine had been more than pain, it had been a herald. The seed in my belly throbbed in rhythm with the rain, each drop a tiny drumbeat against the window pane. Kaylin moved closer, her cloak rustling like dry leaves. She knelt beside the sofa, her eyes never leaving mine. "Do you remember the first time we opened a portal together?" she asked, voice soft enough to blend with the storm. I laughed, a sound that sounded too fragile in the cavernous room. We were terrified, but we trusted each other. The sigil glowed and the air sang. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to fall into the unknown. She smiled, a flash of amber in the gloom. "That trust is what will keep us from being torn apart. The veil feeds on doubt, on fear. It wants us to turn on each other." My mind raced. The seed was not just a seed. It was a conduit, a living bridge between our world and the shadowed realm beyond. I could feel its tendrils probing, searching for a foothold. I clenched my fists, nails digging into the worn fabric of the sofa, and whispered, "What if it consumes us?" Kaylin's hand found mine again, this time squeezing with a firmness that steadied my shaking thoughts. "Then we become something else," she said. "We become the fire that burns the veil from within." The words ignited a spark in my chest. I imagined the veil as a massive, translucent wall, its surface rippling with whispers of forgotten souls. I could see our magic as threads of golden light weaving through the cracks, pulling at the darkness. A sudden crack of thunder rattled the windows, and the room seemed to inhale. The seed pulsed louder, a deep thrum that resonated in my bones. I felt a surge of heat rise from my abdomen, spreading outward like molten gold, coating my skin with a faint luminescence. "Feel it," Kaylin urged, her voice trembling with awe. "It's the veil recognizing us. It knows we are a threat." I closed my eyes, letting the sensation wash over me. The heat was no longer a threat, it was a promise. I could sense the veil's ancient hunger, its endless yearning to swallow light, and I could feel Kalen's presence beside me, a steady rhythm that matched my own. When I opened my eyes, the world had changed. The shadows outside the window seemed to pulse, as if alive, and the streetlights flickered in a pattern that felt like a code. I realized the veil was trying to communicate, to test us. "We need to act now," Kalen said, standing and moving toward the old wooden desk that held the ancient grimoire we had used in our studies. She flipped it open, the pages rustling like dry leaves. The grimoire was bound in cracked leather, its symbols etched in silver that caught the dim light. I could see the sigils we had practiced, the ones that could bind a seed, the ones that could open a portal. My heart hammered as I realized the gravity of our choice. "There's a rite," Karen read aloud, "to bind the seed to the bearer's soul, turning it into a beacon rather than a weapon. It requires two hearts beating as one, a sacrifice of memory, and a vow spoken in the language of the veil itself." My breath caught. The rite sounded both beautiful and terrifying. I thought of the countless nights we had spent poring over these pages, of the laughter that echoed in the academy's stone corridors, of the quiet moments when Kalen would rest her head on my shoulder and we would watch the sunrise together. "Will it work?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me, her violet eyes softening. "It will, if we are willing to give everything we have, our past, our fears, even parts of ourselves we cannot name." The seed throbbed again as if urging me forward. I felt a tear slip down my cheek, hot against the skin of my cheek, and I brushed it away with the back of my hand. "Then we do it," I said, my voice steadier now, "together." Kalen nodded and we began the chant. The words felt ancient, each syllable vibrating in the air like a string plucked by unseen fingers. As we spoke, the room seemed to tilt, the walls breathing in rhythm with our voices. Eldracath Thaurian Sever, the language of the veil rolled off our tongues, a melody of loss and longing. The seed inside me glowed brighter, a soft white light that pulsed in time with our chant. I felt my memories, first day at the academy, the taste of rain on stone, the sound of Kalen's laughter, begin to blur, to dissolve like ink in water. A sudden pain shot through my chest, sharp as a blade, and I clutched at my heart. Kalen's hand was on my back, her fingers digging into my skin, anchoring me. "Hold on, Alara," she whispered, her voice a lifeline. "Remember why we started this. Remember the promise we made to protect each other." In that instant, a flood of images surged. The night we first discovered the sigil that could open a portal, the way the moonlight had danced on the water of the lake, the moment Kalen had taken my hand when I fell from the cliff during a trial. Those memories, though fading, burned brighter than any pain. The light from the seed expanded, spilling out of my body in ribbons of silver that wrapped around the room, wrapping around Kalen as well. The shadows outside the window recoiled, hissing as the light touched them. "We are the bridge," I shouted, my voice echoing against the stone walls. "We will not be broken." The veil shuddered, a low moan that seemed to come from the very foundations of the world. The tendrils of darkness writhed, then retreated, as if stung by the purity of our combined magic. When the chant finally faded, silence settled like a blanket. The seed's glow dimmed to a gentle pulse, steady and calm. I opened my eyes to find Kalen's face inches from mine, her breath warm against my skin. "We did it," she said, a smile breaking across her face, tears glistening like dew. I returned the smile, feeling a new kind of strength settle in my bones. The migraine that had once been a curse was now a reminder of the fire that lived within me, a fire that could not be extinguished. We stood together hand in hand, looking out at the city that seemed both familiar and transformed. The streetlights flickered in a new rhythm, the rain now a soft patter that sounded like applause. "What now?" I asked, my voice steady. Kalen squeezed my hand. "We keep the veil thin enough to protect, but not so thin that it devours us. We become the guardians of the bridge, the keepers of the seed, and we do it together as we always have." A soft laugh escaped me. "Together," I echoed, feeling the word settle like a promise etched in stone. The night stretched on, but for the first time in months I felt no dread. The seed was no longer a burden, it was a beacon, a shared heartbeat that linked my soul to Kalen. The veil still whispered, but now its whispers were a lullaby, a reminder that even darkness can be soothed by light. We turned away from the window, the rain washing away the last remnants of fear. The apartment, once cramped and stale, now felt like a sanctuary, the walls humming with the quiet power of our bond. As we moved toward the small kitchen, Kaylin slipped a hand around my waist, pulling me close. "Come on," she said, "let's make some tea. The world can wait while we savor this moment." I smiled, feeling the warmth of her body against mine, the seed's gentle pulse syncing with the rhythm of our hearts. In that simple act, making tea, sharing a quiet evening, I realized that the true magic was not in grand gestures or ancient rites, but in the everyday moments we chose to spend together. The kettle sang, steam curling like ghostly ribbons, and I watched Kaylin's violet eyes reflect the flickering flame. I thought of the future, of battles we might face, of the Veil's endless hunger. Yet I also thought of the present, of the taste of tea on my tongue, of the soft brush of Kaylin's fingers against my skin. "Whatever comes," I whispered, "we'll face it, not as two separate souls, but as one." "One," Kaylin echoed, her smile widening, "always." The night deepened, the rain slowed, and the city outside seemed to hold its breath. Inside, the seed glowed faintly, a reminder of the promise we had made, and as we sat together, sipping tea, I felt a peace I had never known, a peace that came from knowing that love, in its purest form, could be a shield against even the darkest of veils. The story of the seed, the veil, and our bond would continue, written in the stars and whispered by the wind. But for now, in this small apartment, with the rain tapping a gentle rhythm on the roof, I was content. I was alive, I was loved, and I was ready for whatever the world or the veil might throw at us next.